I wanted to go back to the distinction between the propositional calculus and the predicate calculus, or quantification theory as it's sometimes called. You once wrote, I quote almost verbatim, "Logic is an ancient subject, and since 1879 it has been a great one." 1879 was the year in which Frege published his monograph called the Begriffsschrift, which means conceptual notation. But there had been a lot of very interesting work in logic done before 1879. Boole, in 1847, published his mathematical analysis of logic. A number of philosophers have wondered, haven't you been, wondered whether your remark doesn't slight Boole? How would you?
Yes, Boole, when I was first becoming acquainted with this subject, Boole was regarded as the father of modern logic. And I took that as gospel. But in later years, when I came to know Frege's contributions and more about the history of the thing, it struck me that what he accomplished there is such a major leap that if a boundary is going to be drawn but in the progress of logic between, or in this case, to get back to George's quotation, if we're going to decide where the greatness set in, I would put it there, because we have more continuity before that. There's a lot, as Łukasiewicz showed, there was a good deal in the along the truth-functional line already among the ancient Stoics. And then coming down through the Middle Ages, Petrus Hispanus and Paul of Venice and others who were dealing with that and making further short steps forward, and then Leibniz doing a bit more, getting on closer to Boole's Boolean algebra, so that you have a relatively minor science, not a great science, but still one that is alive and very slowly progressing along the way. And it seems to me that when Boole comes on the scene, along with De Morgan and Charles Sanders Peirce shortly after, that you don't have a sudden turn upward. It's just more modest progress, and I think the decisive point is 1879.
I think Peirce was actually doing things very, very close to what Frege was doing then. It might have been a year or so after Frege actually did it.
Exactly, it was.
He did, but I don't think he was influenced by Frege.
No, he wasn't. And that, yes, that's just from point of view of Peirce's interest. That's a sad accident. He at that time, it seems clear, knew nothing of Frege, and he had been, and one can trace this through Peirce's writings and also his Nachlass, the succession of steps that finally led to the great breakthrough on Peirce's part, which constituted the founding of quantification, which is what we're thinking of as the big turning point that's turned logic into a great subject. You can follow that through in a way that you can't for Frege, because Frege's Begriffsschrift came full grown from Frege's brow. But Peirce finally hit it independently, as you say, of Frege, and it was just a couple of years later. I forget maybe 3 years, I think of 1882, that he's got something that is the real thing. Yeah. And in Peirce's case, furthermore, we have this interesting prehistory within Peirce of the thought process. So this is, picking 79 is just a matter of respecting the public prints.
It is noteworthy that in Frege's Begriffsschrift, which was the work of 1879, does contain a full-blown system of second-order logic. Not only did he come forth with the real thing, he came forth with something which may be the irreal or the surreal, thing as well. I mean, he did actually produce a system of second-order logic and prove some very, very deep theorems in it as well. It's an amazing work, which I think we're only now coming fully to understand.
Yeah, there's another plug for your finding about plurals.
Well, yes.
But can I say one thing? The Peirce certainly had the quantifier, gets it out of the algebra of logic as he develops. It's not clear, though, that he had what you might call a full system. That is, there are no precise rules.
Oh,
it's
good.
entirely
Good.
semantical or quasi-semantical.
Oh, yes.
And it's not clear that he even had rules for turning things into prenex, the so-called rules of passage, explicitly. This was so foreign to him.
Yeah.
So there is in the sense that we think of logic and the whole notion of a formal system, that clearly is Frege.
Oh, yes,
And,
good.
that in some ways is far more important, because Frege truly is the grandfather of the computer. And what you see in the Begriffsschrift is the first truly programming language.
Yeah, so that's very
That's
controlling.
very important.
It makes it not such a near miss and says a heartbreaking near miss on
No,
Peirce's part.
it's a totally different attitude and the whole approach. And you couldn't, a great deal belongs to on the other, but to continue with what George said, of course for Frege, the distinction between first order and second order didn't exist. It was not a serious matter for him. For him, he's the one who really gives us the idea of logic in the biggest sense, and that's from which you came, of course, originally.
Yes, even set theory, naive set theory.
Yes, he doesn't even think in any other terms. Nor did Russell until much later.
Well, now that we've gotten into the history of the subject a little bit, I wonder if you could tell us a bit about your own early years, the years with Carnap and Tarski in Warsaw. I'm particularly interested in the question of the Gödel incompleteness theorems, which had just come out, had they not, when you first went to Europe to study. Would you tell us a little bit about the connection?
Just a year before. Yeah. I don't know when I first got the news. I think it was before I got to Europe, but it couldn't have been much before. I can't remember its ringing any bell in the philosophy department at Harvard, or much less the mathematics department.
How much contact did you have with the circle of logicians in Princeton once you got back to the United States? You were up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and there was an active group of people in New York and Princeton.
Yes, well, there was enough contact, so it was quite significant for me pretty promptly. In fact, it was in 1936 that the first issue of the Journal of Symbolic Logic came out under Church's direction, and that was the outcome of the formation of the Association for Symbolic Logic in 1935, and that had been, Church and Curry had been the prime movers there of an organizational kind, but various of us had been drawn in on the discussions, 35, maybe even 34.
But it sounds as if, say, the Gödel incompleteness theorems, which by my lights are perhaps some of the greatest logical, certainly by anybody's lights, some of the greatest logical discoveries since Aristotle, were rather slow in being assimilated. Is that right?
Well, perhaps so. The question of how widely. There's a story about John von Neumann, who was at that time teaching at Berlin and giving a seminar, and the news had just broken then. However he got it, in what form he got it, I don't know, but it was right there in 31 when Gödel's, well, maybe just when his paper appeared. Anyway, it was.
No, he got it. It was in September of 1930 at the conference at Königsberg when Gödel announced the result.
Oh, that was it.
And von Neumann was sitting right there. In fact, von Neumann was one of the participants in the symposium.
But it seemed that von Neumann was about the only person in the audience who took in Gödel's remark.
Yes. Well, and the story that I had heard was that as soon as von Neumann got that, he changed the seminar devoted it completely to the Gödel's theorem.
That's absolutely right. Actually, he proved, you see, when Gödel announced the result, he didn't have the second theorem yet. He didn't have the, you couldn't prove the consistency in the system.
No.
He suggested, and von Neumann got that independently, but by the time he wrote Gödel, Gödel had it.
Oh, yeah.
Van, there's great news these days. Fermat's last theorem has been proved.
Oh, yes, of course.
Tell us
yes.
what you think about Weyl's discovery, if it does pan out.
Well, I guess like everyone else, it's amazing. Amazing enough so that naturally one's skeptical for a while. The amazing thing is that various of them have finally decided that, yes, apparently it's right. They haven't turned up anything wrong with it. One always reserves the back of one's mind the possibility that someone may still, but it is very exciting to know that the thing has the acceptance now of the profession.